Welcome to Happily Ever Aftermath,
the podcast where we discuss relationships in movies and our relationships with them.
I'm Polina Grinbaum.
And I'm Diana Rojek-Sconard.
Hey, it's Diana. Before we get started with our discussion with the amazing Alysa Lucas, just a heads up that we had some technical difficulties with Polina's audio, and there's a small portion of the discussion where Polina has magically disappeared. It's only for a small piece, but we hope you enjoy. Thanks.
All right.
Welcome back.
Here we are, and this is amazing. So, not only are we hitting this incredible movie, Pretty in Pink,
I know. I can't believe it.
We are talking about this movie with an incredible guest, Alysa Lucas.
Hello.
Alysa.
Hello. Best Forevers, a podcast for Kindred Spirits.
Yes. Great podcast.
One of my favorites. Thank you so
thank
much.
you.
Not only have I subscribed, I've hit all of the groups. I'll be sneaking in various stalker elements of our relationship as as the episode progresses. But Pretty in Pink.
I'm definitely
Pretty in
the
Pink.
odd man out here.
Oh, no. I actually demanded that I took the intro because the way you two were gabbing beforehand, I was the 4-year-old little sister again, like,
Wait, I want to play.
I'm like,
I can't get
I'm
in.
here too. Okay, so I get to read the intro. All right. 1986, Pretty in Pink. For those of you who are uninitiated,
Sorry.
Andie, Molly McDowell, Molly Ringwald is an outcast in her Chicago high school, hanging out either with her older boss, Annie Potts, who owns the record store where she works, or her quirky classmate, Duckie, Jon Cryer, who has a crush on her. When one of the rich and popular kids at school, Blane, Andrew McCarthy, asks Andie out, it seems too good to be true. As Andie starts falling for Blane, she begins to realize that dating someone from a different social sphere is not easy. Thank you, Google internet search, for that synopsis.
Awesome.
And I'm out of the conversation for the next 20 minutes. Go.
You don't have any thoughts?
No, I have tons of thoughts. It's just that you guys are exploding with thoughts. So I'm just going to
I'm exploding with feelings. I don't know if I'm exploding with thoughts.
You got feelings. How are your feelings? Talk to me about your feelings.
Well, actually, I mean, this is hard because, I have to say, Alysa, I am super jealous that you picked this movie because I think I was like, I want to save this till I'm good, but this was a huge movie for me. This was like this movie was basically like I don't even know if it was a movie for me. I think it was a how-to video. Like I think I just watched it. It was everything. Yeah. It was everything. And rewatching it did not change that. Yeah. Like it was so much better than I thought it was. But I want to hear when you I watched this like in the theater when it came out, and I. All the stuff. But when did you encounter it?
I actually don't remember if I saw this in the theater or not. But I just remember it being such a large part of my life around the time that it came out. So I have a feeling that I either did see it in the theater, but I saw so many John Hughes movies in the theater that I might not have been able to distinguish between at that time. But when I was about 9, so that would have been 87, so it's very well possible that the 6-month period waiting for, the video to come out on VHS and come out on HBO, and we did have HBO when I was a kid.
Wait, HBO free preview by any chance? Free preview weekend?
Oh, no, we just had it. Like all the time.
Oh my God! Did you live in one of those big giant houses that they portrayed?
No, not at
all.
You
got HBO. You might as well. You might as well.
Well, I just remember HBO, and I just remember us recording the very first time we recorded a movie. It was the Ghostbusters, and I didn't understand how the recording happened, and so I just remember as it was starting, can we talk during the movie? Because I thought that it would record what I was saying. But I just remember we had HBO.
Like you were shooting a bootleg in somewhere in Cameroon with a cell phone.
I thought it was gonna pick me up and it was just gonna ruin the movie. But I remember this being really important because my friend Anne and I, who we used to play together a lot, we met in second grade, would have been about the year that the movie came out. So 86, we would have been 8 years old. And then probably in third grade, I used to go over to her house, and in the basement, we would play house, like I'm sure a lot of girls did growing up. But what we would do is we would fight over who had Duckie and who had Blane. And so...
Which one did you pick?
We always wanted Duckie. Blaine's gross.
Wow. Yeah.
Blaine is an appliance. He's not a...
Yeah, he's not a name.
He's not a name.
It's an appliance, not a name.
So that was
He's
something I just
bland.
remember so much
So bland.
with, like, my friendship with Anne was that we played so much of that imaginative, like, in relationships, like, playing house and things like that. Who was our boyfriend? And it'd either be Blane or Duckie. And then it's like, oh, I guess I have to have Blane today. It looks gross.
It's not a good day.
Yeah, and I still feel the same after watching it now. I'm like,
oh, totally.
Ugh, Blane. I mean, I like Andrew McCarthy. I mean, Weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
Classic, but...
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
No, he's very attractive. I mean, I was a little older when I saw this movie. I want to focus on your experience with it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard. But I was 13. I guess I was 14 probably, because you're right. Like if it came out in 1986 by the time I saw it. But and I saw it so many times on video. Over and over again with my friend Rusty, who I think I've mentioned before, so I'm going to say it. I don't know, we like all the clothes, all the stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was like the age where I could use this as a manual.
Yes, like the outfits. I mean, she's so stylish.
The rich kids at school.
Oh, it just felt...
The Carmen Ghia. Oh my God, I wanted that Carmen Ghia so bad. The car she drives.
Yes.
She drives a... like a lilac Carmen Ghia.
Well, it matches, it's in the realm of pink, I would think, like a pink purple.
Yes.
And so it very well goes with her, how she identifies that, because she's playing off the redhead thing and the pink and let's be honest, the people who styled her for this movie did, but I mean, that's sort of like who she was. And I think that it really, I don't know, the fashion, she was just so cool. And
so cool.
Duckie, I thought,
and she
was
made
so
all
cool.
of her own stuff, and that was such a thing. Like, we didn't have a lot of money either. Just felt anxious about it. I did a lot of. This is sort of the thing that started me. Thrift store shopping and putting cool buttons on my clothes badly. I mean, I didn't sew as well but I don't know.
I wanted to
it was the beginning of that
person. Like, I wanted to be a fashion designer, but I couldn't draw. And like, I would have a notebook where it was essentially I drew the same image over and over. And it's not far off from the image that she draws in the movie when she's designing her dress. And I'm like, did you make all these clothes? Because I don't know if that rendering of your dress was that detailed.
It was very weird because you see all these photographs. You see her drawing a lot, in the movie. There's like 3 or 4 scenes where she's drawing, and they're all really good. And then the drawing of the dress is sort of like
Might
what
as well
I would
have been
do.
a stick figure.
Totally. Anyway.
Yeah, it was a little bit just like, hey, that's like the beginning of a triangle. Oh, it's a dress. Okay. Yeah.
I have to say, I was like very impressed that she could. So, should we talk about the fact that we were all at the actual place the prom took? So, there's a prom scene. The major thing in the movie is about the prom.
Yes.
For some weird reason.
Yes, which is never clear because the dad immediately is like, have you been asked to prom? Like, dang, Dad.
Literally the first scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Opening credits.
Dad, you don't even have a job and I'm supposed to go to the prom? Like, what the hell?
Talk about deflecting.
Well, I would say, good for him for, like, hey, prom, girl, don't lie.
Yeah.
I'm not an alcoholic. Anyways.
What?
Actually,
Why? Wait, I'm sleeping? What?
Well, that's the other thing is that I didn't get alcoholic from him. I think James Spader's character had drank more alcohol on screen than her, I assume, alcoholic father.
Was he supposed to be an alcoholic father?
I can see vibes of that, but to me, he's just really, really depressed, if anything.
Yes.
And they don't clearly state that because maybe it's 1986 and, you know, people don't talk about stuff like that.
Well, and there's a central thing where, it opens up with her mother, with her waking up her father, like clearly kind of, you know, taking care of him. And they have a really lovely, like jokey and very affectionate and very trusting relationship. Like they really seem like they feel very, in, you know, modern parlance, they seem to really know each other, you know? They both feel very known by the other person.
I would say, though, just as one aside, that she very much feels like the parent, though, at times.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, but other than that, because he asked about prom, he's like, I'm sorry, we have to have these conversations, but he is present, but not completely in his life.
Because he says, I keep coming home late.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, and I think as a teenager, I don't know how you see it, like when you were when I was a teenager, I saw their relationship very much like I was envious of it because it seemed like she was the adult, which when you're a teenager, you kind of imagine that you want.
Yeah.
But the reality, seeing it as an adult, is like, oh, it's sad that at 17 she had to be the adult.
Yeah.
You know? Mm-hmm. And he's very, because basically the mother left, his wife.
Just left.
Mother just left, like didn't, just not died, left.
Yeah.
And they haven't spoken to each other. But anyway, you know, looking at it now, so how did you feel, Alysa? Like, how did you feel about their relationship now versus when you looked at it then?
You know, I always liked Harry Dean Stanton. I think it's because of this movie.
Yes,
I think
such a great actor.
I mean, he's so good, and I was really sorry to see that he passed away. Wasn't it last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah, that was really, really, he's one of those that was hard.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, it was very tough. And I was thinking about that about John Mahoney right now from Frasier. And I've been rewatching Frasier. I'm actually on season 5, so I've been watching it every night. And so there's been like some classic...
That's my sleepy time show. I find it very soothing.
What's that?
Frasier is my sleepy time show.
Yes,
I find
I
it
watch
very
it before
soothing.
I go to bed. But I would say then, I just thought, you know, that must be very difficult for the mother to be gone, and that, like, gender roles, you know, that he's taking on... He's not taking on a quote-unquote historical father role. Instead, he's taking on the quote-unquote mother role, right? He's not working, and you would see that fathers... you know, are breadwinners and things like that. And I think even when I was younger, I mean, we learn about gender roles so quickly that I remember having thoughts like that. But watching it now, I just kind of felt like he was present, but like I was saying, he wasn't present in his own life. And
he was present. He was present for her as a human being,
exactly,
but not present for his own life.
But I also think that why... I mean, I guess I can understand, you know, being devastated that the woman that you loved walked out on you, but why he wouldn't want to get the job for his daughter, who he seems to be so caring of, and he's present for her, but not himself. And it's like, well, then think of it this way, that the job that she's trying to get you would be for her. But maybe there's a level of disappointment in that he doesn't want to disappoint her. And also, she's a senior.
Because he lies for a long time.
With a couple months left that she's going to leave him too. And I don't think they really address that. And so maybe that's something to discuss what happens after the movie. Is, you know, she's going to get a scholarship. He mentions that at some point. You're going to get a scholarship. You have these things. And it's kind of like maybe he's being reminded that his wife left because his daughter will be leaving soon too.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was thinking just in general, so you saying she's going to leave, like she's going to go away to college. I didn't even process that. I was thinking maybe he was terrified of her leaving the same way, like in a bad sense, you know, not just the regular life aspect of it. So, wow, just like good observation on that one.
I guess I didn't focus so much on that.
And like an empty nest sort of thing, but it's completely empty nest because you don't have your partner. There's only one child, so there isn't another child to focus on. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that when things aren't going well in your life and you see things going well in someone else's life, especially someone who's so intertwined with you, I think it can be even more devastating to see them leave, and it's like you're being left behind with what, you know. The dog was cool. Did the dog have a name?
Oh my God, no, you never heard the dog name. I was watching when I rewatched it. I was watching for that. Who was the dog?
I swear she does address the dog by the name. You talk amongst yourself. I'm going to look it up right now.
All right. So, so you actually rewatch it. So this is maybe not a great question, but because you've rewatched it since, but did you have any kind of takeaways from the difference between watching it when you were a kid and what you focused on now?
Yeah, I would say that for me, as I said, like Anne and I would play house and we thought like Blane was kind of gross.
That's so awesome.
And then like the Duckie was cool, you know, type of thing. And I think really for me, looking back on it now, I have a couple problems with Blane. One, his hair. Two, because it looks like
I have no problems with his hair because I remember that time.
Prom scene. His hair.
Oh,
in the
that's
beginning
true.
of
The hair in the
was good.
prom
The prom scene. He got a weird haircut or something, and
right.
it did not.
No, you're
go.
right.
He actually, okay.
Was it a
I'm on
re-film?
trivia.
Yeah.
No, they had to, he had they had to do the reshoots for that, and so he had I think he either shaved his head or had completely different hair. They had to stick a wig on
Yeah,
him.
he looks gross.
Oh my God! Oh, that's why you're right. I forgot about the prom scene. Had really weird hair.
Yeah. So that.
I love the floppy hair. Floppy hair is my like.
Your
I don't
thing.
know
It's your
if you're a
jam.
regular listener, but floppy hair is like, yeah, it's my thing. I mean, I can't. The amount of floppy hair love that I get.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
It's feathered.
It was feathered. I mean, it was a time. I'm going to say that if I saw a man with feathered hair now, I would laugh at him and not be like, ooh. But then, you know.
Well, and one of the things I would say is that Steph, this is my favorite role of James Spader, who I adore.
Yeah.
And every time I see Steph, it just warms my heart because he just plays this disgusting person so well. But his hair clearly beats out Andrew McCarthy's hair in this movie.
Oh,
Steph
his hair
beats
always
Blane.
beats out everybody.
Steph's hair, and the suits,
Oh,
and the slip-on
the blonde.
shoes, and I mean the cigarette that is like, you know, like vertical up and down. It's not even out of his mouth horizontally. Like I'm like, how are you smoking? He was so cool.
Yeah, he has a permanent like it's a sneer and a pout at the same time. Like every time he appears, like this is the thing that shocked me is when I was watching it, I did have that moment where I remember, you know, of course when I watched it, I was like James Spader. I was like, oh my God, that guy, like because we had those guys in my high school.
Yeah,
I was like, oh that guy, but. I was just rewatching it. I was like, every time he's so friggin' attractive. Like, every time he comes on, he's just so mad, like crazy sexy, even though he's horrible.
Yeah.
And he has a sneer and a pout at the same time.
You're like,
it's how? How does he do that? How does he do that?
because he's amazing.
I'd like to point out. So you said that this is your favorite role of James Spader's. Yeah. The episode before this one coming out is on the movie Secretary.
Oh, and I've only seen that once, but yeah.
Okay, so for me, it was kind of an interesting, 180 where it's just like, I just am fascinated with James Spader's character in Secretary, and he has this vulnerability, and it's amazing. And then watching him be this dickhead, for lack of a better word, I wanted to say, like, I hate you so much. Congratulations, James Spader, on doing this amazing character that I can't stop hating.
Yeah,
but
and yet it's still really hot. That's weird.
Well, if I may finish, I'm still strangely drawn to the fact that you have your shirt like halfway buttoned to the half of your chest, and it's working. It's not good.
But his glasses, he's got those shades. I think that me, it is my favorite role because it's the first role and it's the one that had the most impact on me because this movie is not a movie, as I say earlier. It's like like a life, right? That it was something that we integrated into our life. But I do think it's interesting that Anne and I didn't fight over Steph. Like Steph was not included there, and that might be because it was maybe we're trying to be like Andie, you know, and watching it when I was a kid,
can't
I just
admit at 9.
What's that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Continue.
Edit.
I was saying it's hard to admit at 9, like, that you like the asshole, like that much of an asshole.
And now I'm like,
I mean, I don't like Steph. I had the same thing. I never thought about Steph.
I mean, I thought about it, but I was like, yeah, he's mean. So you don't want to be with someone like that. That there's going to be people like that who are attractive, but they're really nasty. And I think one of the things, so sort of the takeaway then was like, you know, it's like the rich kids versus the non-richie, like they call them the richies. And then, you know, they're seen as these snobby, awful people, which the way they presented are, you know, with Steph. And then Benny, who's constantly sort of harassing Andie, although Andie has her friend Jenna who kind of gets back at Benny. Yeah. And so then I think that Blane is supposed to be the rich kid that's sort of like not like the rich kids, but he's so influenced by them that he can't be himself. And that it's the same thing. Like Andie goes around, should I date this guy? What would you do if you were dating someone who was rich, or who had would you date someone who had money? And all our friends are like, what are you doing? Why do you want to know? And it's like they are so influenced by their friends that they can't make their own decision about whether or not they're going to date each other. But I thought what was really interesting in the movie was that Andie is sort of like a parent and has to sort of act a little bit older because her mother is gone and her dad is depressed and might be an alcoholic. But the rich kids are basically adults. I'm like, how are they 17 years old? Like,
I know, and they're just like, he's hanging out, like, Steph is hanging out in his dad's very nice library, rolling joints.
Where the hell are they? Like, is this a museum or a house? Like,
yeah.
You know, and they're hanging out, and I'm just like, what? And so I think that's something they have in common. They all are acting like adults, but maybe in different ways, and you know, not good ways. But when I saw it, I was just, you know, the main thing for me was Duckie. To me, he was everything, and I feel like Andie really spoke to me in the sense of she was different, and she wasn't accepted by everyone. She was accepted by some people, but not by others, and that Duckie was really cool. And I feel like that speaks to me because, you know, I feel like I fell in, like I was telling you beforehand, I was a cheerleader, but I wasn't in the in-group, right, with everyone. Like, you know, I always joked the line from What About Bob? I'm like Neil Diamond, they either love me or hate me. And so in some ways I feel like Andie's character speaks to me as like being yourself. Like, you know, she was always who she was, creating whatever she could, studying, doing the things that she needed to do, working, and just realizing that she wasn't going to be accepted by everyone, but wanted to give this one guy a chance. And to me, I still think Blane was a mistake the entire time. Like, that is the one thing I do not like about this movie, is that it should never have been Blane. In my opinion, at 9 and, you know, 19 and 29, it was probably all it should have been Duckie. However, after watching it at 39, I don't know if it should have been Duckie either. And that changed.
I can't wait to get
into the... Yeah, it changed with the new viewing. But for me, you know, I would say, looking back on my life, my dating record would reflect being friends first. And I think that is a lot that came from this movie. Like, Polina, you talked about this as like a life book or a how-to. For me, it was like, maybe that's how you find partners, is that they're your friends, you know? And I think that has always spoken to me. And so when you don't have a lot of guy friends, then there might not be a lot of romantic relationships if you follow that method of operation.
That kind of makes sense. And so just for my own, you guys talked about it like it was, you know, this is how to be a teenager. Manual.
What was it yours?
Okay, so for me, I saw it later because you guys are older than I am. So I hit
So 1986, I was 3, and so what happened?
You might have seen this movie, you just don't remember.
No, it's like Star Wars. I know it's in my it's in my soul somewhere, but I remember watching it like for the first time. It was on TV, and of course I rented it like crazy from Blockbuster. And I do have the watching repeat thing from it edited on television because when Blane confronts Steph about how you asked her out, and then she said, "No, that's it, isn't it? She thinks you're slarm." No.
That's not what he really said.
Not what he really said, but at the same time, it just sticks out in my head. She thinks you're slime. And so it's really great, but, watching it fully all the way through, I have to agree with you. It's like, in my head, I mean, I was a fan of Blane because he was just sweet and he was unassuming and he was trying to do it. But see, as I get older, again, it's true, he's bland. But
they never
That's
have
what
a
his
conversation.
name should have been.
yeah.
I'm going on a date
never
with
have
Glenn.
a conversation.
Well, they did have a couple of them, but it was just kind of very surface level. But think about it. At that age, everything is surface level.
Yeah.
You haven't lived.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, Andie has.
I mean,
like
she's
pretty
had
well. She's had some harsh
pretty
stuff.
serious life experience.
Yeah, I was like the alternative kid. Like that's why this is. I was the alternative kid who had shameful crushes on preppy kids. Steph. Well, not Steph, but probably a Blane. I had a Blane. There were a couple Blanes, I'm going to say. But yeah, but there was just that weird thing in high school of like, you just see them and you're just like watching it again, seeing her like, try to be like cool and but really embarrassed when he walks into the record store and she sees him. Yeah. It's like they capture that really well, that somersault, that like, that kind of stomach flip.
Yeah. Because she doesn't expect him to walk into tracks, which, by the way, can we just talk about how that's a clever name for a record store and a story about people being from the wrong side of the tracks? What?
Oh, well done.
Can we talk about Annie? Can we talk about the Annie Potts character for a few minutes?
Iona is one of my favorites.
Oh my God, yes. I really, really want. Well, I wanted a job in the record store because this is, probably the album that made me discover a lot of my favorite musicians.
Such a good album.
I think I've had the full-length album of almost every single person on this. Mm-hmm. Like Echo and the Bunnymen. This is what got me into them, and I had pictures of Ian McCullough all over my walls. Oh.
I'm sorry. Did you say Ian McKellen? Because I'm into that.
Yeah. No, but that's good too. That's not good.
You shall not pass.
Yeah. I had my own. Unfortunately, like one of my best friend, who I also had a crush on for a little while, was gay. Mm. And kind of, we all dressed like these people. There was a lot of like men's blazers, like a lot of thrift store men's blazers. They were great. I had some really great oversized men's blazers.
But what did you think about Iona's outfit with the spiky hair and like the plastic black with the white t-shirt, but then the white t-shirt's cut out in the back? Her style.
I think I did that, like based on I rewound and made the shirt. I mean, in a school acceptable way, of course.
Yeah, as best.
You mean her dominatrix outfit?
Yes.
Loved it.
I thought she was a great character. One of the things I think is really interesting about it is that when you read sort of the synopsis at the beginning, Diana, that it says like her older coworker, and I don't think I've seen that or heard that anywhere else, like that I remember hearing them say like an older coworker, and she is like, this is her job and that sort of thing. And I think the character is just really cool. Like she's funny. Like the whole time that Andie is kind of doing that awkward flirt thing with Blane, the whole phone call conversation that she's having is hysterical. And it's not always, the camera isn't always on her, but it is worth just listening to her, the back and forth with that toxic relationship, which she gets out of.
Oh, yeah, where she's like,
how do I know? The last time I was locked up in the backseat of your car. You know, she does.
Yeah.
Like, she has all these lines.
And she's this, like, dominatrix outfit on at the time.
Exactly. And she's
yeah,
like...
that's great.
But one of the things, and you see her character change so much in the same way that I think that Andie's dad views her. Andie is viewing Iona as changing and kind of wishing that she had, like, there's this level of envy, you know, I'm wishing and wanting, and things aren't going right in her life with the boys. And, you know, Iona sort of is dating Terrence, the pet shop guy, and she kind of, you know, changes a little bit. But one thing that rang true for me watching it now that did not when I was 9 was that Iona was, as best as they could, a mother character for Andie. Mm-hmm. And that, you know, I think that when I was a kid, I was just all about Andie and who she was going to pick. So I'm interested in the love triangle. And watching it again, you know, I always loved Harry Dean Stanton. But watching it again, you can really see sort of the level of relationships with parents coming through that I didn't pay attention the first time. So
It's
I remember,
there. Yeah.
I definitely think that was a big part of, you know, when I said this movie was a thing, I think I was like, I would love to have, I was an only child, and I was like, I would love to have the cool older sister that would help me do these things. You know what I mean? Was like, you know, trying to figure out who I could be as an adult. Like, that was a big, I was like, I wish I had that. Because I was really struggling with my relationship with my mom at the time, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I didn't, you know, it wasn't as easy to have that. And I mean, we were struggling with each other.
Yeah.
It's not just one way.
Yeah.
So I found that, like, yeah, it's really powerful in the way that she sort of lets her be sad. And, you know, like, it is very maternal, but still fun. And like, and you know, the outfits and the apartment, her amazing Chinatown apartment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, she's so cool. And that's the thing is, like, she tries to talk about her experiences with prom, and she pulls out her dress and they, like, dance together. And then she's, like, wants to give her the dress, and Andie doesn't want it or won't take it.
Because she doesn't want to go.
She doesn't want to go, but then she goes and takes it when she's ready for it. And Iona gives it to her without a second thought. It's yours. And I just... As someone, you know, my podcast focuses on friendships. You know, there's two thoughts I have there. Is one is that a lot of times people don't think that they can be friends with people that are a different age of them. And I think that they have a very nice relationship, and that there is a level of, I'm glad you said older sister. Maybe that's getting to the mother, but not exactly, right? You know, that she's the cool older sister that's going to help her do things. But at the same time, Andie does things to help her too, like, you know, she can't do the machine at work, and just, like, I don't know, like, they just have a fun relationship together.
I think that's why I like the older sister thing. Is like, you know, when at one scene, Iona puts on her prom, she's talking about the prom and the prom dress and the hair, and she like finds some beehive wig, and she's dancing, and you see like how Andie is just like, I know that this is what, like, Iona wants, but it's kind of annoying. Yeah.
But it's like, they're good friends. And one of the things that I don't like about the movie is that Andie does not appear to have a lot of friends, or they don't take much precedent in the movie. Like, Jenna is only in a couple scenes, but very minimal. Iona is a friend, and then you have Duckie, but you don't. She seems to be doing a lot of this on her own, and, you know, that is probably some people's high school experience for sure.
Oh, definitely.
And so, you know, I guess I didn't like it because I was like, so is Jenna a friend? Or, like, when she goes to the club that Duckie can't get into, where Andrew Dice Clay is the bouncer. They never
explain why Duckie can't get into the club.
He just won't let him in.
Is it because he doesn't?
He just doesn't want, is not going to let him in. He can just...
But, like, why?
Well, have you seen Duckie? He can be annoying. I don't know.
Well, but like, I mean, it's not exactly like there's a line out the door.
Yeah, and
Doesn't need to be a line.
It doesn't indicate if like Andie's 18 and it's an 18 and up place or what it is.
Oh, that's true.
So maybe he's 17. Older. I mean,
yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
They don't make that clear, but I think Andrew Dice Clay makes a very good observation. Why does she keep coming to this place when she knows that I don't let you in?
Yeah.
Food for thought, right?
What was people? I mean, one thing that's interesting about this movie is a lot of the, a lot of it is also about not just friendship, but it's also like talks a lot about sort of the societal like socioeconomic. Not in a deep or wise or it's in a rather like two-dimensional way, but this whole idea of the prom, and as like sort of an alternative kid who tried to pretend that she was above it all, like my relationship with the prom is very similar to Andie's.
Yeah.
Was very similar to Andie's, and actually my relationship to all of those things was very similar. It's that weird thing of like you want it. But you're kind of ashamed for wanting it because it's BS and it's not even something you care about. And you're like, why do I care about these things?
Yeah. I think that was something that was really missing from the movie. Like there isn't even conversation about the prom very much at school. It's not like everyone's talking about it at school and it makes you feel bad or there's peer pressure from friends. Like we all have dates and you don't, you loser. Like there's nothing... Yeah. Like
maybe it's all from the dad.
Like the dad is like, do you have a date for prom? Like, does that indicate for him that he's done a good job raising her as a daughter without the mom because she was able to find a date? Like that's the only thing I can think of. Like why is the prom such a big deal other than it's a big thing societal, at the societal level? I think that's
what it is.
But they don't even talk about that. Like it's not even till like halfway through the movie or longer that Duckie even pulls down the sign that says something about voting for prom queen and king. And so it's not even like there's signs up. The teacher isn't talking about it in their class. It's not like Duckie and Andie have some huge conversation about it. Like, so to me, I was like, all of a sudden it's just like, do you have a prom date? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like,
why? It was the first thing. But I think Iona, she talks about it with Iona, which I thought was really interesting. Like, basically, she kind of says what I just said, which is why. And Iona's like, well, yeah, it's totally stupid, but you kind of have to go. And she tells a story about a friend of hers who always felt like she was forgetting something. But then she just chalked it up to, I just never went to my prom. Did you guys have a weird relationship with your prom? Yeah, like my keys, my coffee cup. What did you guys have? What was your relationship to prom?
We had a junior and senior prom. I went to both.
Yeah, me too.
I went with younger guys. So my junior year, I went with a freshman who was a friend. And then my senior year, I went with my boyfriend. And he was a sophomore. So, so there's, I don't know, you can dissect that for what it is. But yeah, I think that there was more of like, do I want to be left alone on a Saturday night? Or, it's just one of those things like, yeah, maybe you feel like you have to do it. And maybe that's why I was like, at least I feel like they should have done something that, where those conversations are being had versus the assumption that they're being had. But I mean, I had pretty good experiences with prom. It was really nerve-wracking finding dates. The first year I went with my boyfriend, and I went with a friend, but it's still like, no one asked me. I asked out both the guys, each time. I was never asked.
Yeah, I did too.
So, I always had this thing where, I didn't think that I was accepted, in some ways, like Andie said, but she at least has 2 guys that were interested in her. 3! Steph, too. Don't forget Steph. She has 3 more guys interested in her than there were interested in me in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I'll tell you what.
Yeah. He was there since freshman year, too, asking her out all 4 years, so.
I think that's really interesting.
How about you, Diana? What was your relationship to prom?
Oh, good God. Okay. So I did. Well, no, you forgot already. Maybe our listeners didn't. So
I wanted to reiterate.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm here for you.
Junior prom was interesting because, oh god, this sounds something out of a John Hughes novel movie. So the guy that I had a crush on asked my best friend. My best friend didn't want to, but still said yes, and then she asked me to come with them. So I went, and then I asked another friend to go with me. So there's this great shot of us, prom picture of the three of us, Charlie's Angels style, with the finger guns and everything like that. I love that picture, but for senior prom, and I love this. This is all tying in. So I talked about a part of this in one of our older episodes, and I also talked about this on Best Forevers in my friendship letter. Yay! You're smiling and nodding. So I had a huge falling out with my best friend in high school. So we were going to go to prom together. We were going to share a gay guy and go to prom together, and we just had this kind of like our friendship dissolved, so I was left with nothing. I had this huge crush on a different guy, and Polina, this is where she's nodding because I asked him out, and the longer story is I did the generic, like, I asked him out, his mom said no, and I love putting it that way, but I realized I wasn't fully honest. I asked his friend to ask him for me, and he said it while his mom was in the room, and he came back and said no. Unfortunately, his mom said no before he answered.
Horrible.
I assumed, so that was a non-starter. So I actually asked a different friend of mine. It turns out in my classes, all the really smart guys in my classes, they were all taken. So there was like a shortage. It was like overabundance of females. So I'm like, okay, but I did find some guy who was like not interested. I asked him, hey, I will pay for your ticket if you get me to the prom, because he had a car. Yeah. And so he said sure. And we ended up going with his group of friends because they were so excited. It's like, oh my God, he wasn't going to go, and he's totally going. So we actually got to go in their limo, and we had a really nice time. I ended up, developing a crush on him, and that was really awkward afterwards because I was still pining over mom said no guy at the time. So I have like all these weird conflicting feelings of just like the whole time I'm pining over this guy, not paying attention to the fact that this guy who's been in front of me this whole time is here, and he took me to prom, and then that turned into a weird thing where
it is a movie.
I got to. Yeah.
Hey, it's Diana again. Here's the part where we lost Polina, but thanks to the magic of editing, it becomes a two-person discussion about when did they fall in love. But Polina will be back for the end when we talk about what happens next.
So here's an important question, and I don't think it's particularly fair in my own perspective of watching it, and I'll tell you with my answers, but here it is. When did they fall in love? And Duckie was just perpetually in love with her, so that's not what I'm talking about.
Although I would like to talk about his love for Andie at some point if we can, because I think it's...
I want your thoughts. Absolutely.
Don't think they ever fall in love. Is that a fair answer?
Oh yeah, indeed.
Because I was like, the movie starts when she goes to school. One of the very first scene, he's admiring her, like kind of following her and watching her, and then he shows up at her work, and then there's the computer trick, and I think he shows up again, and then he talks to her where he asks her out. They go out on that shitty date to the party and then to the club, and then they have the second date at the stable, and then they have their fight, and then they make out in the parking lot after the prom, and that's their entire relationship. Yep. And he's like, I love you, and I was like, what? No, you don't. And yeah.
You might have already known.
Well, I love when he does his I love his humble brag. And he's very pleased with himself because she's like, oh, I like your computer trick. He's like, yes, it's very clever, and I'm like, ugh, God, gross. And so that's like their entire relationship. So I think she has a crush on him and she likes him. And I think that he has a crush on her and he likes her. But they don't actually know anything about each other than one is rich and one is not. And
no, I
that's
agree
about it.
wholeheartedly. When she's sitting on the couch with her dad, and they're talking about that. I do you love him? I think I do. I'm like, you're so cute with your I think I love him. You've known him 45 minutes. So cute. So
Well, and it's after they just had like a horrible date, and they barely talked to each other on the ride home because she didn't want him to see where she lived, and she's like kind of like crying, and then he's just like, well, do you want to go to prom? And then all of a sudden it's like she has more excitement when he's not there. And every scene where he's not there or she's thinking about him, her excitement level is way higher than it is when she's actually with him.
I was about to say, that's so accurate to real life.
Oh, this is a big one. I don't think that Andie and Blane last
Dun, dun, dun.
very long at all. Well, first off, I think that Andrew McCarthy in this movie as Blane is a horrible kisser.
He really is.
Like, every time I watch it, I was like, oh, God, what am I watching? It doesn't... Yeah. And it doesn't seem to have any warmth behind it, And so I'm just like, ew. But even Iona's like, what was the kiss like? Did you feel it in your knees? And she's like, I felt it all over. And Iona's like, oh, he's a strong kisser. And I'm like, if you saw it, strong lips. Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if you would agree if you saw him, but I feel like there's going to be a high after the prom, and then it's going to be like Monday morning, and, they go back to school, and I think that Steph is still going to be Steph, Benny's still going to be Benny, and I don't think they have enough for it to last. So, not that I ever wanted it to be the ending anyway, so... That might be why. Do we even know? Because they haven't really had any conversations. Right. And I just think that, if anything, if it was 2018, Blane would ghost Andie. And ghosting, and he'd just disappear. Oh. Right? He would, poof, gone. I think he would ghost her.
Wow. So I am wholeheartedly in agreement with both of you. I think that graduation will come and there'll be some like summer dating, but if she is going to get that scholarship, I really think that she's going to keep going. She's not going to let this relationship like derail what she needs to do, because she knows she needs every piece she can get in order for her to stabilize her future. Whereas he is, he'll probably go to some college, study business, and it'll be not where she is. I don't think there's like enough in there to actually like make the commitment. I'm going to go to the college that you went to and we're going to spend all this time. No, it's just going to be, okay, well, they're going to get to know each other and realize, oh, okay. And it's not going to be like the social structures and everything is going to separate them. It's just going to be, no, they're different people with different values. Just because he's not a big a-hole, that doesn't mean that they're going to share likes and aspirations. So it's going to be nice, and then they're going to go their separate ways. And I think it'll go on cordial terms, but it's just going to be like a mutually accepted, like, okay, bye.
I think the second date they have at the club at the stable is sort of like the linchpin to Blane, or how he views the relationship. He talks about his parents, and he says corporate families replace royal families, and he's like some electronic company, which might be why he knew how to do the IMing.
Sure.
That he is the son of someone who owns like the electronic company. Yeah. And he says, I could just tell them all to go to hell. If someone doesn't believe in me, and Andie says, if someone doesn't believe in me, I cannot believe in them. And says, like, I really want this to happen. And his face does not reflect that at all, because I think he's so concerned about his family or how people will view him. And I think that's going to continue, especially as he graduates and his family looks to him going to school or being part of the family business or whatever that might be, that she will not be, potentially based on how he talks about his mother and how Steph talks about Blaine's mother, that they would not be accepting of Andie.
But one of the things, one of the things that I think is most important, that there was the whole Steph confrontation of just like, why are you spending time with this girl? And your mom's not going to like it, but we didn't even see it. And then all of a sudden he actually did ghost her. He tried to ghost her in that whole situation. And so just one little bit of a pushback, he folded like a card table. So this is not just his family. This is not just his friends. This did not bode well.
It's him, because he says at the end that he believed in her and she didn't believe in him. He gave her nothing to believe in when he ghosted her, or just, gave up and said, gave in to himself, his friends, his family, whatever it was. Yep. Like, he was not strong enough to keep the relationship going and be confident about his feelings for this person. And he couldn't do it. So when he said that to her, that's one of the things I don't like about the end either, because I was like, no, you did not. Because if you did, you would have gone to prom with her in the first place. You wouldn't have told her that you forgot that you asked someone else. Bullshit.
So we can believe that Blane will continue to not believe in her. No.
Exactly.
Okay.
Blane has given enough evidence of how he'll behave. And his past behavior predicts future behavior.
Folding chair. Alrighty.
Yes, exactly. I have a lot of thoughts about Duckie, because I feel like from the very beginning, I wrote down she has an admirer in Blane, but she also has Duckie right away. And I wrote down, is he truly a friend or is he a nuisance? He's going to call the cafeteria for reservation and then ask if he can admire her again that day, and she seems embarrassed. And then at the record store with Iona, when Blane shows up and Duckie does his whole Otis Redding, which is one of the greatest scenes in the movie, his grand gesture,
sure.
Right? Try a little tenderness. And I'm like, did he choreograph this? Does he practice this at home when he's not riding by her house on his bike? Because he drives by and he watches her house. He goes to her dad and says that he wants to marry her. He is talking about all of these things, and he is what we might call a would-be lover. So I teach relational classes at Central Michigan University, and I use this movie as an example of unrequited love, where he does all these things and he's very persistent, and he believes he has a chance, and he just keeps trying and trying. And then when he gets shut down, in the sense that if they were friends, why didn't she tell him that she liked Blane, or that she was going out on a date with Blane? Yeah. And then he finds out, and then he gets upset. And one of the things that you can see is that he becomes really nasty to her. Yep. And he's like, I've lived to like you, but I can't like you anymore. And, when he breaks your heart and your heart's all over the ground, I'm not going to be here. And that's sort of like a really shocking moment for her. And I just wonder if she's sort of in this position of a rejecter, right? Because he likes her more than she likes him. Mm-hmm. But I do wonder if they are truly friends. The moment when he shows up to prom for her, I would say that was a friendship moment. And when he says, go to Blane, that is a friendship moment. Yeah. But everything else, and how long they've known each other since they were kids, his behavior is actually borderline, if not problematic, in the sense that he 5 times in a half hour.
So bad.
He calls her all the time. So yeah, I have a concern with Duckie in the sense of, I always loved him. I think that it's a message that, we should always give someone who likes us a chance, versus this idea that if we don't like someone, we should just be able to say no, and that should be okay. Mm-hmm. And so I think it does set us up to that if you're persistent, you can wear us down, and then whoever it might be. So I do think, like, watching it, when I watched it again this morning, because I watched it several times, and I've watched it so many times over the years, that this part I've had such different feelings about. And I always show that one scene when he does the dance, and then they sort of fight in the back room, and he's like, Blane, it's not a name, it's a major appliance. I show that scene every semester in my class. Yeah. So I watch these 4.5 minutes every single semester, and so I know it really well. But then when you watch the rest of it, I'm like, all the stuff he's doing, and he says he will stop riding by her house. He still rides by her house. And so I I just think that, I mean, at the prom, he's like, go to Blane. And then 2 seconds later, there's Christy Swanson. Oh, here's a girl who seems to be into me. Now I can get over Andie because there's someone else, when that was never really a possibility before.
Yeah.
So, but I was still excited to see Christy Swanson. I was like, yeah, Buffy. I was like, yeah. But that's where I have a tough time wondering what would happen, because I don't know if he would he go back to sort of the love of his life as he sees it, and the breakup would be, and if she breaks up with Blane, would be an indicator that they still have a chance, that would he go back to being persistent, or is it some level of closure? Okay, I'm done here, and I'm going to try these other relationships. And I think part of it is he just hasn't had one, because he's been in love with Andie for so long, that if he had other relationships, he might not participate in these behaviors. Or maybe he would, and it would become worse and worse and worse and worse, and I get concerned.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. I don't know, though.
My theory is they stay connected. They like write each other letters. They talk. They get together. He's maybe going to stay and go to community college, but she's going to go to some other city, and go to school. And they're going to remain friends, because she's like, I can't take this on. And they're going to have a night or a couple, or like a summer or something, where they're going to try this. And he's going to realize, because basically, even though he knows her really well, when you have those kind of feelings for someone, I almost don't understand how it can work, because they're no longer a three-dimensional problematic human. They are the sum total of all of your hopes and fantasies. You almost spend more time. You must spend more time with them in your head than you spend with them as a human being. Yeah. And I think that, I think that it's not going to work. And I think that it'll become way too painful for her, and he's not going to be able to deal with it. Or like, he's not, they're going to break up, and he's not, maybe because of some fight that he instigates, because she's not being this perfect person.
Yeah, he has her on a pedestal, and the only way is down.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, you can't float. I mean, yes, you can float off of a pedestal. But the landing is never gentle, no. I have noticed. In my experience, is never gentle. You usually do crash off of a pedestal, and it hurts, and you sprain your ankle, or something happens.
Yeah.
Break a collarbone. I don't know. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to be over the moon, and then years later, he's going to be like, I was an asshole. You know what I mean?
I was way too into her.
Yeah. And, they'll be sort of probably Facebook friends later. That's my theory. They'll talk every now and again, or they'll go and every now and again have a heart to heart when they both go home or live at home or something, Anyway, okay. That's my theory. Diana?
Oh, wow. So, Polina, what you were describing, here I am agreeing with you guys. This is not good podcasting. It was just like, yeah, I agree so much. Yeah, the end.
Me too.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy sucks. No, I do see. So what's interesting about Duckie is when I watched it, like I said, I watched my same parts on repeat, and the same parts were the first time that Andie and Blane kiss, because she's so excited to go to prom, and then I even skipped the stable scene because it's just like they're just sitting together, not really talking.
Boring.
The confrontation at the end, and Duckie beating Steph up and everything like that. And so in my brain, Duckie was just, of course he was perfect, because not only was he perfect, I was watching the only perfect parts of him. He was standing up for her. He's sad that she's not doing it, but watching from the beginning, I so watched that so rarely. I forgot that Steph actually wanted to go out with Andie and she rejected him. That's just like, that puts a whole new layer on the stuff like that. So
I forgot about that too.
Yeah,
he's really nasty to
really
her
bad
too about it.
Yeah, so there was that piece.
Not an uncommon experience.
Just ugh.
This movie is so true.
God, I hope not.
So there's that. And then also, rewatching it, you were saying at the end, Ducky's just like, oh, she is off with Blane. Hi, Christy Swanson over here. Me? And I thought that was pretty interesting. But at the very beginning, there was also like, oh, I'll make a reservation at the cafeteria. It turns around. I was floored when he said this to those two girls. Ladies, if we make perfect arrangements, you could be pregnant by winter. And he got slapped.
Yeah, which was really gross.
Thank God he got slapped.
Thank God he got slapped, you know? It just, oh my God, that was disgusting. So I'm just really conflicted about Ducky, but listening to Polina talk about how they're going to, she is going to go off to college. Blane is going to be a spec and then he's going to go away. But the relationship between Andie and Ducky will continue. Now, I think what's going to happen is her being gone, he's going to be stuck, you know, in their home as well, because he in his bedroom, he's on a mattress on the floor, and
there's graffiti on the
I don't
wall.
even understand how that happened unless he put it there. But I'm not even gonna,
I bet he put it there. My guess is he put it there.
Well, maybe. But the other thing is that he's possibly
Wait, when was he in his bedroom with the mattress?
when he was sulking.
One of the montage scenes.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
He was sulking.
I remember.
Which he does several times in the movie.
There was...
He also sulks in front of graffiti after him and Blane, but really good graffiti.
Yeah, it's on the side of tracks.
It's on the side
He's
of tracks.
sitting on top of the newspaper thing.
And then it starts to
machine.
rain.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's very important in 80s movies, the sadness in the rain.
Sadness or kissing in the rain is key to the whole
I've tried to
operation.
recreate that in a time or two.
Me
in front
too.
of the...
It only works. It works really well in Hawaii. That's the only thing I have to say.
Note for later. Put on bucket list.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he'll...
Do it now.
Oh, geez. Where was my thought going? Dang it.
I'm sorry. So yeah, you were saying he's got a sad bedroom on the
sad
floor
bedroom.
with graffiti.
He'll stay home.
Remember when they were studying, she even asked him, are you deliberately trying to stay in high school? And I see so much of that there.
Yeah.
And I think that when he does see her go and there's nothing to work with, I mean, he'll have some Christy Swanson times and that'll be nice. But I think
Christy Swanson times, maybe my new favorite quote. Christy Swanson times. Some Christy Swanson times.
he will go. He will eventually realize that because there's no girl to ground him to staying exactly where he is. I think he will. I myself did the community college 2 years, and it.
Me too. I did 4.
Well done. For me,
I got out of Dodge.
For me, it was I didn't want to grow up either. So I used community college as, you know, the official reason was I wanted to save money, but unofficially it's like I didn't want to grow up. So in watching people leave and you staying exactly where you are, there is an opportunity for you to reevaluate, and he is going to reevaluate. And eventually he'll find his footing and he'll get going. For Andie, she's going to graduate. She's going to do more, and it's going to be great. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be. I mean, I can't place an exact career on her, but
they didn't really say other than fashion.
I don't think
She could be a buyer. There's lots of
there is that possibility, but I think what's going to happen is she's going to take the fact that she's resourceful. She's taking the bits and pieces that she has, and she's going to make more out of it than the final product will be more than the sum of the parts. So I can see her creating some sort of opportunities in a business to help other people thrive with minimal resources. That's going to happen.
beautiful. Oh man,
she's killing it right now.
Jeez.
So in addition to that, here's what's really important, because this is about relationships, and we have somebody with a bunch of education about relationships. So I want your thoughts on this. So, so working with what Polina was saying about how they're going to stay friends, I think that's going to happen. And when I was hearing more and more about it, I realized I have the exact example. One of my really good friends, still friends today. I was a bridesmaid in her wedding. She was a bridesmaid in my wedding. She used to date this guy in high school. They actually split up. There's a prom picture of them, and it's really sweet. It's in my book. But in the end, he is, he's with someone else and she's with somebody else, and they are like 4 peas in a pod. Where so she, her ex's now wife, was maid of honor at her wedding because they're such close friends as well. And I don't remember if he was best man, but he was at least a groomsman because I remember them at the bachelor party and everything like that. And I see constantly on Facebook all their stuff together. They're just this amazing cohesive thing where they have fun together, they spend time together, their kids hang out together, and they went in different paths. I mean, holy crap. If Amy's listening to this, hi, sweetie. But no, sure enough,
Hi, Amy.
yeah,
Hi,
I'm not positive, but like, Amy, she did her thing. She became, she got married. She had kids. She's doing this, and then her ex, Sean, he's, living in the next town over, and they spend all this time together. He's married to his wife. She's, married to her husband, and it's just, I see it all together. It doesn't even process that they had a relationship together, and I think that's going to be the future for Andie and Duckie.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really interesting about that is that one of the things is when you think about high school, depending on the size and the location of the town and the school, whether it's big or small, I mean, I think this can happen in many ways. There's I don't want to use the word force, but essentially you're in the same location, so proximity is really key at that time. And so we create relationships with people that we might not choose if we had more of a choice. Does that make sense? Yeah. There's 3 flavors at this local ice cream place versus the 31 flavors at Baskin Robbins. And so you have more of a choice at 31 flavors, where I'm trying to get the 80s vibe, because that to me is Baskin Robbins.
What was your
favorite
versus
Baskin like
Robbins
strawberry
flavor?
chocolate and vanilla. And so I think that, people date and in high school and things change so greatly because they were so young or they were learning, and your life, sometimes people might feel like their life doesn't start until they've met more people and had more experiences, and high school might not be it. And they probably had a true bond, but it was just in the wrong type of relationship. And because the school or the area, depending on the size or options and things like that they dated, but maybe they were always just meant to be friends. And so I think that they go and they leave and they gain much more experience, but their bond that they had is still there. And so to me, that is probably a relationship. Those 4 people will always be friends. And that original romantic relationship will never be an issue at any point whatsoever. Never has, never will, never will be. Because that's not where they are. And it's not something where they were, it was kid love, might be fair, you know. But I think that, but I also think that for your friend, her name was Amy, right? Amy. I think that she was really smart about things in the sense of, let me explain a little bit more, is that a lot of times people have those relationships and then they leave high school and they just drop them and they would never be in contact with each other ever again. And I say that she's really smart in the sense of that her and Sean probably recognized some level of bond, that they wanted to be in each other's life, but in a way that was good for both of them, and for both of them and for their children and for their spouses. It's being friends, right? And it's being friends in an entire group. It's not the 2 of them anymore. Yeah. It's a whole unit of friendship. You have both of their relationships, you have their kids. It's a whole community of friendship. And that's pretty amazing, because most people might just drop it and leave it and never talk to Sean again or never talk to Amy again. But really what they did was grow more, learn more, have relationships, and really discover how they fit into each other's lives in like the right way or the best way. And I think that's really cool. I think it's amazing. So shout out to Amy and Sean.
I know,
hey.
Amy and Sean.
They could really teach other people some things, I think.
What?
And I sure hope that's what happens with Duckie.
I hope so too.
I mean, there's something about him that I like, and then the fact that I teach dark side, which is, the side of relationships that are toxic and dysfunctional and unproductive. And I think that his behavior being overly persistent and sort of like this pressure can be really dangerous. And for her, there is a level as a would-be as a rejecter that you get this esteem and you know he's always going to be there. So she gets a boost from Duckie even if she doesn't have the same feelings for him. And so that can be problematic. Yeah. And then what we know from research is that people who experience unrequited love, no matter if they're the rejecter or the would-be lover, no one is satisfied. So it's not a relationship that has usually a positive outcome. And we actually talk about a solution being that if you're single, for example, and you like someone, that maybe if they're in a relationship, it might be better if you put some time into having a crush on a celebrity because you know it's never going to happen and they can't reject you if they don't know you. I always think of the meme of the guy going like, you know, like thinking like they can't reject you if they don't know you. And just but when people know and it can ruin a relationship, no one wants to, he doesn't want to talk to her. She doesn't want to reject him. So no one is talking. It's called the conspiracy of silence, where people will just mix messages, ambiguity. No one knows what's going on and no one says anything and they don't talk about it at all. And no one ends up being happy. She's unhappy with him because he becomes nasty with her when she goes out with Blane. He's not happy with her because he feels like their relationship has lost quality. He is jealous and envious of Blane, and it just has a lot of problems. And so that's my concern. And one of the things that we talk about in the class is that unrequited love at times in extreme cases leads to stalking. Sure. And so I think like encouraging behaviors like that, or saying like you should, like, I'm glad no one in there said that Andie should date Duckie because she doesn't owe him anything. We don't owe anyone anything, and a no should suffice. And so, but those are in extreme cases, but it happens a lot more, you know, with technology and
of course, it's so much easier. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it was different when you had to physically go and, you know, drive bike by their house
multiple times.
You know, you didn't know where they were going to be because, you know, they're posting it or they're saying. And there's, I mean, it's funny, you're talking about unrequited love and, you know, Duckie's stuff, but also hers. And I remember that feeling of feeling guilty because part of me is like, I want to be attracted to this person. But both, I think I knew that even if I was, it wouldn't really end well because I wasn't me. You know what I mean? Like there was that pedestal thing. Yeah. But also I just felt guilty, like, because basically I think when you're that person, and I, you know, knew this from being this person, is that you're like, why can't you see how perfect we are together? And that part of me that was like, oh my God, if only I was attracted to this person, it would be all so much easier, you know? Like, I would make him happy and I wouldn't cause him pain. Yeah. And I have some, you know, there's somebody who, of course, you know, you're talking about being the rejecter. There's somebody who just thinks you're amazing and perfect and gorgeous and thinks about you and takes care of you. I mean, not takes care of you, but just sort of, you know, sees you and tries to and it's just this horrible feeling of like, why can't I feel the same way they feel about me?
And I'm you might have saw me get like excited on the screen, but that's because guilt is one of the primary emotions related to unrequited love. You know, like really? There's that, you know, oh, if I just, you know, force this. And so, excuse me. So it's one of those things like if you just force it, like I'll just give them a chance. And, you know, students will talk about, you know, I dated someone for 3 months trying to give them a chance and it just didn't work. And I said, you know, well, what would you have rather? Would you have rather the rejection from the get-go or rejection after someone tried to, quote-unquote, force something for 3 months? And I think most people would say they would prefer the first rejection. And what's really interesting about unrequited love and rejection is that we don't really have a script for it. So how do we reject people in a kind and effective, compassionate, clear way that a lot of times rejectors are not clear? You know, would-be lovers wouldn't want to hear the message. And I can share the link to the article that I'm thinking of primarily to include with this episode, so that if anyone's interested, they could read more about it. But
I am.
But yeah, no, it's just like, how do we reject people?
Yeah.
You know, it's like we have a script for how we would behave on a first date. We have a script for how we would act on a job interview. We have a script for maybe even breakups. They might be cheesy, but we don't have like a rejection script. And I think that's really fascinating and problematic.
Because you never want to be the first right? If you're hanging out with somebody, and I have a lot of male friends, and it was always that weird thing of like, you don't want to be conceited and be like, hey, just so you know. Like, that's why actually being, having male friends when you're like, I've been married for 12, 11, something like that. And it's always a lot easier. It's like, I have this gigantic wedding ring, so we are friends by default. And I'm always shocked when people break that contract. Yeah. I'm like, I don't need to say it anymore, right? Yeah. But yeah. I don't know.
It's anyway. Yeah, that's a hard one. And off the top of my head, just kind of going back to the younger years, why would I need the means to know how to reject a person? I can't even give it away.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's be honest. I think one of the reasons why this movie speaks to me so much is I was probably more often the would-be lover than I was the rejecter. More likely to be rejected. And, at that time, the gender roles are still pretty clear and boys were asking girls out. I mean, I'm thinking heterosexual, right? Yeah. And, I don't recall being asked out very much. So I feel like I was often placed in that role of being the would-be lover and then being set up for rejection. Yeah. And so it's not fun, but
both. But yeah, it never really quite worked out. Yeah. It didn't always work out. The number of times it worked out where both people liked each other the same way. But I actually think it worked out better. I think when you let that stuff go on too long, you build up all this stuff in your head. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, there was that New Yorker story that was sort of people were freaking out about, I think it was called Cat Person. I don't know if you ever read that. Did you read that? That was like a couple months ago.
I don't know that one.
It's great. It's a great story, but it kind of was like, oh, this is what it's like. Anyway, but the central theme is that these people connect, and they a lot of the fantasy of it happens offline, or it happens like they're texting each other, and so they build up these ideas in their heads, and then when they get together, they can't reconcile what's really happening, and they can't separate their idea of this investment that they've already made. Mm-hmm. With the reality of what they actually experience when they're actually together, which actually, I mean, I'm using the word actually a lot.
Technically.
Which is a lot of what Blane, which is a lot what Blane and Andie feel for each other, I think. Mm-hmm. Is this idea of each other sort of they've been eyeing each other across the hallways for a while, and I
think it goes back to what you were saying, where they live most of that relationship in their head than they do in real life. And I think that pedestal placement, it happens a lot on the internet, right? Where you get this idea in mind of who this person is, and then when you get to meet them in real life, like reconciling any discrepancies or unexpected sort of information or new information and how that might compete with how you already feel about them, people can probably change how they feel really quickly. Like, "Ew, this person isn't who they said they would," or it might take people a while. But yeah, I think that your point about, we spend a lot of time in our head, I think that can be dangerous to relationships.
Yeah.
To having successful
definitely.
relationships.
And even just like, it's funny, I mean, even now, like there's something I've been stewing about. There was a conversation that my husband and I had. We've been together. We were together for 10 years. We're really good friends. We're very close friends, and then we got together. And then we were together for 10 years before we got married. And very early in our relationship, our dating relationship, I told him something. And that was very personal. I hadn't really told anybody this kind of traumatic incident that I'd had. And he reacted. He didn't react badly, but to me, he reacted very
non-supportive.
He really didn't engage with it. And so it was only and I never pursued it. Like, I never really mentioned it because we were having at the time a conversation about a friend of his that had a similar very traumatic incident happen. And he was like, he kind of went back. I mean, he acknowledged it, but he went back to talking about his friend. And of course, I mean, I think we're working at a bar. I was probably a little drunk at the time. And I never pursued it, and it was only really 20 years later. A lot of this stuff is coming up, and again, and I said to him basically, I've been carrying around for 20 years in my head that you had this reaction, and he does not. He was like, "Oh God, I am so sorry, but I do not remember. I don't really." Yeah. To him, he was like, I remember having a conversation with you, but I don't remember being that dismissive or that. But it had grown in my head, like over and over and over. And it had taken, this sort of life of its own. And then afterwards, I was like, I was then still upset that he hadn't talked to me more about it. Like, he apologized for his behavior. He acted well. And I was telling a friend of mine about this, that I'm like, I've really been putting off having this conversation. And my friend's like, I don't understand. I'm like, I'm afraid to mention it. But he's like, Polina, like his reaction to your traumatic incident is not, like, has nothing to do with the fact that you're processing a traumatic incident. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true. Like, like, that's a really good point. But it was just, it's that thing, we do it a lot. We, even now, and this is somebody I've been with forever, and we're extremely close, like, it's not like we don't talk, but it's like, it's so easy to be in your head about these things that you're having an entire conversation without the other person there.
And I would think that the more you think about it in that way or have that same thought, it becomes truer and truer and truer. You're more confident in that thought. Yes. That was like how he responded, for example.
You're rewriting the groove in your head. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then it was your perception, and your perception is the reality, right? Because that is your truth, because that's what you perceived. But when you actually talked to him, that was not his perception. And so I think that is an indicator that having conversations is the best way in which to get on the same page, whether it's about you've been in a relationship for a very long time and you're very close, or if you like someone and you're not sure if they like you, getting on the same page, right? That quickly. It's actually having the conversations that helps you get there, versus sort of what, the article talks about, like conspiracy of silence, where no one talks about anything.
Right. Yeah. And I myself, so I love hearing you say things like conspiracy asylums and just all of that. And I'm thinking about so I asked my now husband at the time, I asked him out, and I actually emailed it to him because, you can hide behind the email, and there was this whole thing. We actually managed to lie to each other because our friends were leaving for college and we were going to be around, but also still going to college. And it was just like, I'm just losing all my friends, looking for some people to hang out with. Oh yeah, me too. And then we were hanging out some more. She's like, oh yeah, no, not looking for a relationship. Oh yeah, me neither. We're both lying to each other's faces. And then it finally got to the point where I'm just like, when I said, I'm just looking to hang out some more. I like you. And he's like, oh yeah, cool. And I'm like, that's when the email came in. I was like, I want to be very clear about this. I like you. I want to spend time with you more. I would like to, start a relationship. And it got to the and the thing is, he's like, afterwards, of course, years and years later, it's just like, oh, thank God, yes, me too. So I love hearing that whole just not talking. I'm just like, you know what? I've been not talking for 17 years, 18 years, 19 years. I'm done. We talk now.
Yeah.
We talk.
Good.
Well, and it's...
Oh, Lord, no. I'm just... I just got tired.
Well, but one of the things is, I just think, if we actually taught people how to have these conversations in relationships and we had scripts for it, how much more clear things would be, or that people would be on the same page, or, it just could go on, like you said, for years. You're 19 years lying to each other, and then it's like, no, we like each other.
I mean, it's not like we have lots of those. I just want to be clear.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the off chance that he's listening, we don't have lots of these.
Yeah. Well, and it's also, but it was an effective example of what we were talking about, how we can do that, whether we're liking someone or in a relationship. It can happen in both scenarios, and I think that you made an excellent point. So
I think especially, and some of it is when the stakes are high. And I think, Diana, what you're saying is basically you're like, the stakes are higher for me if I keep silent about this. I've done that and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Can you?
And I think for me, the stakes were so high that he would have this, the same reaction. And so I just kept putting it off.
Sure.
And of course, why would he? Why would he have the same reaction? He knows me. He would.
Yeah. And I think in all the scenarios, what it does is allows you not to risk take, because in the sense of having the conversation is risky. And so it's, it's protective, that no one really wants to take the leap because you might be rejected in some way. Yeah. And that rejection could be like, well, I don't like you, or nope, that's still my reaction, and in both cases would be something that would make us feel bad, and we try to avoid feeling bad, right? So, plus Ducky, he really puts himself out
in ways that are not subtle in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, there's nothing subtle about Ducky.
Including the shoes.
No.
Oh, God, I love the creepers. I think we should...
I think...
sort of...
allow me. Allow me. I think what we should do
Diana,
is tell our wonderful listeners how can they get a hold of Best Forever as a podcast for Kindred Spirits.
Oh, yeah. Yes, I can be found because I'm very ironic and I host a friendship podcast by myself. So you can find me, Best Forevers, on Twitter, Instagram, and the closed Facebook group at Best Forevers Pod. I have a public Facebook page that is Best Forevers, a podcast for Kindred Spirits. And I have a webpage that is bestforeverspod.com. And on there, you can listen to the podcast, but also one of the things that you can do, there's a tab called surveys, and there's a series of surveys. And essentially what a survey is just different topics that you can share your friendship stories regarding jealousy or male friendship or your friendship origin story, which Diana wrote in to one of the surveys, and I read those aloud on the podcast, and I incorporate those in so you can share your stories. I also do a mailing because I think about the focus of my podcast is to love on friendships, and that so I send mail to people in the form of friendship. So if you like to receive cards in the mail, you can go to www.postable.com/bestforeverspod add your address, which will be used for good and not evil, and you'll get some mail.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I should be doing that.
Oh, well,
I love getting mail. That's not a bill.
Well, I'll tell you right now that the last thing I got in the mail is from this fantastic person right now is on my refrigerator.
Yeah. And did we, because I got yours, I got a card from you. Did we send each other the same
very
card?
possible. I don't know what you send me. I don't know what I had.
Is it the white one with hearts on it? Because if so, I can't remember what card I sent you. But when I got your card, I was like, I think we sent each other the same one.
When I was shopping and I was looking through all that, I saw the one that's on my fridge in the packages. I'm like, well, I can't buy that package.
Well, there were some other ones. There's a brown one with a red heart on it. I can't remember what one one's.
I'm excited.
But yeah, so yeah, and I also have so I just try to think about different ways that friendship can occur beyond the podcast. And so with the mailing, or there's a book club that I do, and we're doing Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants in February, and in March it will be The Outsiders. So if you're interested in joining a book club online, there's a Facebook page for that. And because my belief is that everyone deserves friendships and everyone deserves to be happy, healthy, and safe. And if there's anything that I can do in which to help with that, whether it brings friendship to light, talking about a specific topic, giving advice about a certain topic, sending letters in the mail, or being part of a book club, then I think that's really important.
Yep. That sounds great.
Yep. And as I mentioned before in my creepy stalkering of this podcast, I am a subscriber on iTunes. I am getting mail. I'm in the book club. I'm on chapter 4, I think, right now. So I tell you to participate because, I'm sending stuff, thanks to you. Before we started recording, I got a text from my best friend in Texas. I got your card in the mail. And now we're going to talk in a couple days. Yeah.
Oh, fun.
Oh my
See,
God. That's
yeah,
so nice. That reminds
there's
me.
such small things we can do to maintain our relationships and our friendships. And I think we talk a lot about that on the podcast. Like things that might be problematic, like jealousy, but then also just different things like... how to make friends or how to keep friends and how to talk through difficult issues. And I'm hoping to do an episode that is related to kind of like the Pretty in Pink idea of how we have these cross-sex friendships and heterosexual relationships and how we work through that, given, that most people on the outside believe that if you're heterosexual and you're friends with someone that you should or must be dating, right?
I would love. I
just
can't
talking
wait
about
to hear
societal
about that, 'cause
issues.
I have a lot of as I said, I have a lot of male friends.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and maybe you might have some input. Maybe I can have you on, or you can talk a little bit about it, or maybe write something in.
Hang on, my jealousy is flaring up right now.
Oh no.
Well, I will say one thing. One other thing is that I started on Friday, February 9th, a series of episodes that focus on the friendships that podcasters have. And these two lovely ladies are going to be a part of that at some point in the future. So you can check that out as well.
Very happy about that. And
we are really happy about that.
Okay. So there's that. And also you can always go back and listen to your first appearance when we were at the LA Podcast Festival Part 1, where we talked about Titanic.
Yes.
And
I was so mad about Leo.
I loved it. I loved every second of it because I edited all those together, so I listened to them a lot.
And I know you probably have a spiel that you're doing, Diana, but if I can jump in, that was also when I found out. You can hear me learning that we were in the hotel where the prom scene from Pretty in Pink was filmed. And then I got to go I went in with Diana and took pictures and videos, and it was one of the greatest moments of my life. And was that before or after I met Joey McIntyre? I want to
say that was before, and I was so excited.
2 great moments in less than 20 minutes. Can I just tell you, people?
When jealousy flares up, you guys actually met at the podcast festival, and I not a big Joey McIntyre fan, so I was like, what are they? I was excited for you guys, and the fact that you you guys got to go into the Pretty in Pink ballroom, and before me and without me, I have to say I had a little flare up. But but then I was just happy for both of you. It was so much fun to watch how excited you guys got. That was one of my favorite moments of Podfest, which was a lot of highlights.
It was.
That was
an amazing weekend. Oh, it was so good. Oh, okay. So this is an extra jam-packed bonus episode for everybody because we're almost at 2 hours right now. So really quick. So you can get us contact at HEAMCast.com if you want to chime in on your thoughts on Pretty in Pink or Unrequited Lovers or anything you want to. We're on Facebook at Happily Ever Aftermath. HEAMCast, HEAMCAST on Twitter. If you really, really like us, you can give us a review on Apple Podcasts. And I think, thanks.
We would really appreciate it.
Yeah, so this has been delightful, wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us.
So good. And
thank you for having me on and letting me choose the movie and talk about one of my favorite movies of all time.
Thank you for letting me revisit this movie. Last night I was like, I'm tired. I'm just going to watch 20 minutes and then I'll watch the rest in the morning. And next thing I knew, it was over. The last
I was going to say it was the prom scene and OMD was playing. If you leave,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, sorry.
Anyway, I'm actually surprised I've not. I had this moment last night where I was like, I'm going to see how many soundtrack quotes I am going to put in this episode, and then I just got too into talking to do that.
That doesn't sound like you at all.
That's a missed opportunity. Yeah, I know. Isn't it weird? Because usually I'm so quiet.
Yeah.
That's why I have a podcast.
A little bit odd. All right, so thank you.
We could talk about that with the friendship origin story stuff.
That one too.
Yes.
All right, so thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll see you soon. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, and we'll hear you soon. Or you'll hear us soon. I think that's what actually happens.
Everyone listen soon. How about that?
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
For our next episode, we're going to be discussing Being John Malkovich. Malkovich.